are so-called subject matter experts, which include researchers, think tanks, and experts in marketing and advertising. It works with so-called trusted voices, it says, which it describes as local government officials, associations, and so-called community leaders. And if you're wondering how big the censorship program is, well, you'll find the answer to that right at the top. It states that the MDM team's plan on this involves a, quote, whole of society approach. And a lot of this has to do with controlling information about elections. In fact, here's one of their official documents on this for what it refers to as mis, dis, and malinformation planning and incident response guide for election officials. It notes the document is intended to be used by state, local, tribal, and territorial election officials and industry partners as part of a larger mis, dis, and malinformation MDM response strategy. In other words, what was just put on hold with this court injunction on CISA is a whole of society censorship operation. It stretches through the federal government all throughout it, goes down to even the state, local, tribal, and territorial levels. It has government agents communicating directly with social networks, and it has collaboration with alleged community leaders and local government officials. They've been directly involved in controlling what information we see about elections and other key information as well. And look, while I would agree that foreign disinformation is a problem, political bias and government regulation on what a few people deem as true and false is just as serious of a concern. Now, we'll likely be seeing a lot more on this as we get closer to the 2024 elections. And of course, we'll be covering it all here.
CCP in the Kabul moment, I was wondering, man, I wonder if China's going to continue doing this, or if this chapter is somehow going to be stale by the time the book comes out. But sure enough, the book came out right around the second anniversary of the Taliban takeover, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry immediately returned to this, bringing up the Kabul moment again as an opportunity to undermine the United States and threaten Taiwan.
I'll just jump in, so anything like this is, I guess, propaganda, information warfare gold for the CCP. The CCP will use that to elevate itself. There's numerous pieces of propaganda that have been around since time immemorial. I expect this one will be around for a long time. And secondly, this is on top of decades of information warfare against Taiwan, to just be able to take it without firing a shot, so to speak.
Exactly. And it's just, we just kind of gave the CCP another tool to put in their propaganda toolkit when it comes to undermining Taiwan.
Yeah. So, and what about Bagram? And what about, the CCP's actual designs on Afghanistan? How's that actually playing out? The CCP has been showing itself as a supporter of the Taliban. It's been fighting for the Taliban at the UN. The money of the previous government, which has been frozen, they're advocating to get that money out, which of course then they will benefit from. Mm-hmm. So give me that piece.
The CCP is probably the most powerful voice on the world stage right now, advocating for some of the Taliban's interests. And a big piece of that is that there are currently billions of dollars of former Afghan government funds that have been frozen by the United States. And the CCP has been pushing the United States relentlessly for 2 years to free that money and hand it over to the Taliban. This is what the CCP wants. This is obviously what the Taliban wants as well. And so their interests are aligned there. Since the United States exited Afghanistan, the Taliban took over, the CCP has been working to increase its economic interests there, and also working to slowly but surely increase its military and intelligence interests.
He provided vendor with appraisal. So that question will probably be asked later on tomorrow when he comes back on the stand. Tiffany?
Arlene, thank you for that report. Meanwhile, Trump is asking a judge to throw out another case against him. His attorneys today filed a motion for dismissal of the election interference case in D.C., saying the former president is, quote, absolutely immune from prosecution. They also said the actions Trump was charged with are, quote, at the heart of his official responsibilities as president. And in Trump's classified documents trial, his lawyers are requesting the trial is postponed until after next year's election. They say they haven't received all the materials needed to prepare his defense. Trump's lawyers are urging Judge Eileen Cannon to push the trial back until at least mid-November 2024. They say there have been delays in obtaining and reviewing the classified records referenced in the indictment. The presidential election is set for November 5th, 2024. Trump currently leads the GOP field by a large margin. Prosecutors suggested last week that the Trump team's request was unreasonable. They said some of the delays were beyond their control. The DOJ says it has turned over most of the classified evidence to the defense. Back to D.C. as the House now searches for its next speaker. Some are in
purpose. We speak with a retired special agent for ICE, Victor Avila, about the seeming policy switch-up. Victor Avila, thank you for your time. President Biden said he would not build another foot of wall at the southern border, but now he's building 20 miles of wall. What do you think has triggered this change of policy?
I definitely think this is political. It's an election year, and they have to try to tell the American people that it looks like they're trying to do something about this border security chaos that they created. He doesn't agree with the wall. He doesn't want it to be built, but he said that he's being forced by the appropriations to build the wall. It makes absolutely no sense what's going on. Nevertheless, I'll tell you what, the 20 miles down in the Rio Grande Valley that's being built is way overdue, but we need a lot more wall in very different parts of the border as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, the wall will be built in what's called a high illegal entry zone. But when it's done, you know, what's stopping migrants from crossing at another part of the border, making that the new high illegal entry zone?
And that's exactly right. And remember, it's the wall technology that works with the policy attached to it, not the wall itself. And you're absolutely right. They will shift to a different location. I would love to see a barrier in Eagle Pass, Texas right now, where thousands of illegals continue to come through.
And now this week, Mexican President Lopez Obrador said the U.S. will soon see about 10,000 migrants per day coming across the border. That's based on the number of migrants coming across Mexico's southern border. Will this be any different from other influxes of immigrants at our southern border?
I think the president of Mexico is about a week and a half late on that news cycle, because I just stood in Eagle Pass, Texas last week, and I saw thousands. As a matter of fact, on one day there was 11,000 that came in, and we've had an average about 9,000 to 10,000 per day come in through our southern border. But instead of trying to figure out how many are coming in, the president of Mexico should start figuring out and working with the United States government to stop the flow, because most of the individuals coming through Mexico are also illegally present in Mexico.
Now, you mentioned pairing the border wall with some policy changes. What kind of policy changes are you talking about here?
Well, the very first one is to actually allow Border Patrol agents to go back and do their jobs and the scope of their duties that they were trained to do. I witnessed firsthand that they're just not allowed to do that. This was in Eagle Pass, Texas, and El Paso, Texas, in the last week and a half that I've been there. And let me tell you, they are demoralized, these agents, because not only are they not allowed to enforce the law, they're being asked to do things against their will that they don't want to do. And I'm talking about cutting razor wire, allowing the migrants to come in. And so this is very demoralizing for them.
All right, Victor Avila, thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, they say involves over 18,000 illegal Chinese immigrants that crossed into the U.S. this year. Let's zoom in.
How big is the influx of illegal Chinese migrants through the border? An over 800% spike compared to last year. Over 18,000 Chinese people illegally crossed into the U.S. through the southern border in 2023, compared to a little over 2,000 last year and around 400 in 2021. Lawmakers saying over 90% of the illegal Chinese immigrants in 2023 are single adults. Officials argue they could engage in espionage activities or cyber attacks against critical infrastructure. The road to America through the South is dangerous. Illegal migrants trek through muddy rainforests on foot and cross rushing rivers by boat. Some escape China over fear of Beijing's authoritarian rule. But for authorities, gauging who truly needs protection can be a touchy subject.
Is the PRC exploiting the crisis at our southern border for their own personal gain?
I think we should assume that any vulnerabilities at our southern border are open for authoritarian influence of many kinds. I think that's a safe assumption. If the gaps are there, then those who are working against us are going to use them to their advantage.
Calls to address the issue are on the rise.
With the threat of terror, fentanyl and other illicit drugs that are coming in, and the human trafficking that's going on, I think it should be called to attention, because is the communist Chinese government exploiting our southern border being open, just like they've done with fentanyl?
Fentanyl has killed more Americans than car accidents and cancer. To put it in perspective, the drug killed over 70,000 Americans in 2021. That's about one person every 8 minutes. The drug flow breaking families in the U.S.
Now, if we had Chinese troops lining up along our southern border with weapons aimed at our people, with weapons of mass destruction aimed at our cities, you damn well know you would do something about it. We had a weather balloon from China going across our country. Nobody died, and everybody's freaking out about it. But 100,000 die every year, and nothing's being done. Not enough is being done. Numbers are going up, not down. And you talk about children being taken away from their parents. My children were taken away from me. 100,000 Americans every year are having their children, 200,000 because it's both parents, right? Are having their children taken away from them.
Last year, U.S. authorities confiscated over 300 million doses of fentanyl, enough to lethally dose the entire U.S. population. Much of the precursors used to make the drug get made in China, with some of them then pressed into pills in Mexico and smuggled into the U.S. through the southern border.
And in person.
Speaking of China and fentanyl, one demographic of people coming across that's been reported a lot on are military-aged Chinese men. Why do you think they're coming over in such large numbers now?
Well, that's the thing that really concerns me, because there is an exit ban in China, and it's not easy for a Chinese person to get approval to leave the country. It's something that each person has to be approved. And so if there is an exit ban going on in China by the Chinese Communist Party, then how are these people, forget about the fact that they're coming through the U.S. southern border, how are they actually getting out of China? That's what I would like to know. And if the Chinese Communist Party had the intent to infiltrate our society through the southern border, then they would have a reason to let people out of China. And so this is the big question that I think the American people deserve an answer to. We need to round some of these people up and question them. We certainly shouldn't just assume they're here on some kind of refugee status, or they're trying to flee the Chinese Communist Party. Some of them very well may be trying to do that. That being said, we need to actually understand, because the Chinese Communist Party is an enemy, we need to understand what each and every one of them are doing. And again, they should not be released into our society.
And on that note, some national security experts are actually saying our border crisis is being exploited by countries like China. Do you see that being the case here?
Well, not just China. I mean, you have people coming literally from all over the world. I think this is the great secret that's no longer a secret. Everybody knows that if they come to South America, they can come through the southern border. Now, they may have to endure some hardships, and it may be dangerous, but to come to the United States is often a dream of many people, and I think they're willing to take those risks. But more importantly, some of these people actually could be criminals. Some of them could be terrorists. Some of them could be drug traffickers or human traffickers. These are
stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time.